messaging platform Telegram may provide the IP addresses and phone numbers of users who violate its rules to government authorities moving forward. Telegram founder and CEO Pavel Durov, who was arrested in France last month over allegations that his platform was being used for illegal activity, including drug trafficking and the distribution of child sex abuse images, wrote on the app yesterday that we've made it clear the IP addresses and phone numbers of those who violate our rules can be disclosed to relevant authorities in response to valid legal requests. The new policy decision is aimed at limiting criminal activity on the app.
Until now, Telegram's policy was only to disclose data on suspected terrorists upon a court order. The platform also says it will publish quarterly transparency reports to share how often it cooperates with authorities.
Many online are not happy with this move, some writing on X, "Privacy was fun while it lasted. Oh man, they got to Pavel. X is the only platform left. One step closer to a world where you have absolutely no anonymity. When governments strip you of your rights to privacy and free speech to protect you, there is nothing left to protect. Goodbye, Telegram." Yes, this is discouraging, although it's in line with this trend of social media apps, tech platforms that tried to offer some level of anonymity and privacy to users, running up against governments all over the world, including in the U.S., although at the U.S. we're safer from it than everywhere else, trying to break privacy, trying to destroy privacy. Yes, often in pursuit of noble ambitions of thwarting terrorism or catching sex traffickers or child abusers, et cetera, and so on and so forth. But we in the civil libertarian community know that often very bad people, in the authorities going after them, ends up limiting all of our rights. And I think it's very concerning. I think it's concerning. Obviously, social media platforms should, I think, work with law enforcement to some degree to turn over violent or criminal conduct of this nature. But no, I would not want a situation where the company feels obligated just to hand over your phone number, your email address, your IP number, because the government just has some suspicion of you without a warrant. And the reason he's doing this is they put him in prison in France. This was extorted at the point of a gun. This is very, very concerning stuff. It's happening increasingly in Europe, Brazil, China, Iran, Russia. It's every kind of authoritarian ideology, from the Europe technocratic, neoliberal, whatever it is, to actual authoritarianism, China and other places. And we have a little shield from it here because of the First Amendment, but that's not going to stop them from trying.
Free speech is a balance. It's a complicated balance. We talk about it every day. We have major disagreements, slight disagreements. I don't disagree with you actually at all on this. I think it reminds me of when Apple would not disclose anything, basically, to the authorities, and they were smart in that perspective. But it was also when the Obama administration said, well, we just want to look at the phone numbers to look at trends, and I understand that's probably where they're coming from, but put that in the EU, put that into the wrong government's hands, and it becomes something else. We can't forget what happened after 9/11 and how we targeted Arab Americans all over the country and in the government. And that led to false arrests, false detainment for years and years, and in some cases, legal fees that bankrupted people. If they have access to your address, your IP address, and don't have the context and all the information, the language, it's even harder. So it's almost like just hand them over everything because you have a better sense of what these people actually represent to know whether or not maybe this person is a terrorist suspect. And that's their duty. They should be absolutely identifying, and they hadn't, and that's the problem, is now he's in a situation in which, because the company did not disclose whether there were terrorist activities or child trafficking activities or drug trafficking, whatever, he's now in a situation where he has to basically hand over the identities of everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, it's France, so it's slightly different. But here in America, I would say, well, come back with a warrant. I mean, that's the way it should work. Why is this different from Verizon or the cell phone company? You want to listen in on people's calls?
Exactly.
Fine, go get a warrant. You might have valid reasons to do it. You might have suspicion of terrorists. Go get a warrant. That's the way it works. Because we don't want the American people absolutely reject the idea of the government just doing wholesale listening in the hopes of maybe catching someone engaged in something illicit. And the tech companies are in a terrible position where even when they do cooperate, they get yelled at for not doing enough. Like Facebook and other social media companies, they do cooperate with law enforcement. They turn over tons of information. It would stagger you to see the reports, the volume of reports they make to law enforcement about abusive, illegal, violent material on the platform. And still, they get hauled before Congress. the CEOs of these companies and screamed at in the most bipartisan fashion imaginable. In our age of increased polarization, partisanship, where Congress can't agree on anything,
right.
The one thing you get Amy Klobuchar and Ted Cruz ranting and screaming, I would say incoherently, at the heads of social media companies because somewhere, someone had maybe something truly awful happen to them on social media, and it's supposed to be Mark Zuckerberg's fault, or Elon Musk's fault, or Pavel Durov's fault. I mean, it's just, they can't win.
Well, that's the problem with these platforms. They're not publishers. They don't have editors. They don't have fact checkers like any other publisher of a news publication.
You say problem, I say feature.
They're not
good.
They're not lawmakers, so they don't have a duty, a public duty. Right. You know, they weren't elected to make sure that, hopefully, society works a little bit better. And so they're just left to their own devices at this point. And I don't think it's just about the content. I think it's about the algorithms. I think it's about what's happening, especially with kids and addiction, and how these tech platforms are built, which is facilitating, you know, bullying at that level all the way up to more criminal activity.
Well, yeah, I certainly don't think it's Congress's job to police bullying on social media. I mean,
well, they can push the tech companies to take a little bit more responsibility in how they design their products, so that we're not creating a dysfunctional society that's, you know, facilitating more hate crimes.
Yeah, I don't want them doing that at all. Actually, I think that's a recipe for giving them more control over the internet, which is ultimately what they want, to tap down on sources of information that they don't agree with, that they think are popular on because of social media, contrarian points of view. I would say specifically conservative points of view, which is why I'm so disappointed at all times to see Republicans largely going along with the effort to give Congress more power over social media. But here, you know, we're getting a little afield of the topic. This has to do with just privacy, because Telegram is not a. There's mostly conversations between people, trying to facilitate that. And it's not, people have been mistaken about that. It's not like by de facto encrypted. You have to do special options to make it encrypted, which I recommend everyone move to end-to-end encryption. That's what all social media messaging platforms want to do. Facebook has moved in that direction with Facebook Messenger. Snapchat is, I think, mostly encrypted, although I have some questions about whether it's all the way encrypted. And then that will get in the way, but the government hates this. The government wants a backdoor to all end-to-end encryption, because when it's like that, then the company will say, well, we don't actually have the information. We can't. There's nothing to turn over to you. And I think that will be better if you care about privacy. But I know the U.S. government, I'm sure European Union wants it the same way. They want a backdoor into these companies.
Well, we know that the people who are going to want to utilize that the most are the people who are trying to hide in the shadows. And it's why they use things like cryptocurrency to launder money and exchange dollars, whether it's foreign governments doing so or drug traffickers. It's definitely a tool for bad actors, and maybe there are good people like you and me who want to use it because we just don't want people like reading all of our conversations. But
yeah, I don't think you're automatically suspicious if you don't want people reading all of your conversations. Americans are distrustful of surveillance and being monitored, and the you have nothing to hide, so why do you care kind of attitude that really got enshrined into law because of 9/11 and the Patriot Act, something I think so many Americans now have come to understand was a huge mistake, was something we allowed to happen in a moment of patriotic fervor after we were attacked, and has really been used not actually to apprehend, I mean, I'm sure it's been used to apprehend some terrorists, but not fundamentally to keep us safer, but to keep us more quiescent and managed and more watched, and it's really a shame.
Never let a good crisis go to waste, and we know that there are plenty of lawmakers out there who will take advantage of that, especially if they have ties to industries that could benefit from it.
I also predict that the U.S., it's already a little bit like this, but the U.S., the way things are headed, it'll be the only company where it's safe for tech companies to operate and headquarter in the future, because all of these other regions of the globe are moving toward greater censorship and greater crackdowns on these companies for a variety of reasons. And here in the U.S., our government is a little bit constrained from doing that, or more constrained than anywhere else, and that's why we have Silicon Valley. These are companies that thrive on that need speech-related protections, this kind of protections we have that the European Union doesn't. And so I predict in the future we'll have even more robust growth in the tech center in the U.S. compared to the rest of the world, thanks to the First Amendment.
I will just add one thing. I think it's quite funny that countries like Russia and China are using our tools when they're cracking down on free speech in their countries.
Yeah, they don't allow them to have free speech there.
Exactly.
More Rising right after this.